So today we're doing vegetarian and herb. As we all know, I am not vegetarian, but I have a couple of easy salad recipes that pair very well with those. Let's start. Both of my recipes are on page 7 of your booklet that you should have found on your chair. I'm going to start with the bottom one, the vegetable salad. This is a family favorite. This is the 4th time I have made this in the last month because my husband loves this one. So he's like, oh, he was so mad I put it in the outside fridge. He's like, you hid it from me. I'm like, you've had enough. I can make it again. My goodness. So it is a very simple salad. As you all know, I never do anything difficult. That's kind of my trademark. I kind of break it into 3 pieces when I make this one. So it's the vegetable salad, and it's canned vegetables, and it's dicing. So it's not, like I said, I don't do hard. So the first step I do is, if I'm going to put it all together at one time, the very first thing I do then is make the sauce, because you have to heat it up, and then you have to let it cool. So if you look, it's vegetable oil, water, sugar, and vinegar, and salt and pepper, and you just put it on the pan and let it boil, and then it just has to cool. So I always start with that, so it's just done. It does what it's supposed to do and cool, it's done. As we all know, my husband is a diabetic, so I do not use real sugar anymore. It's more of the sweetener. So it says a cup of sugar, which is a lot of sugar. So I've used the sugar sweetener. I use just the Walmart brand, so it's very simple. It's done. Then I let that cool. Second step is just dicing, which again, I'm one of those weirdos. I like to hand dice because it's therapeutic. For me, it's just a simple task. I can see the finished results, which you never get to see in laundry. You never get to see in dishes because there's always more of it. But with chopping vegetables, I see my finished result. I like that. So I just chop up my vegetables. You can see it calls for onion, green pepper, and celery. And again, I know Spencer cringes when I say this. It gives you an amount to measure, but if you really like onion or you really like green pepper, put more of it in. There are times, if I don't have celery, I don't put it in. My husband's not a fan of the jar of pimentos, so I don't put that in, So it's when I make it just for him, it looks pretty when you add the red, but you don't have to do it, okay? Once I'm done dicing, then it's just a simple matter of opening your cans of vegetables. And I use white corn, which is hard for me to find. Walmart I cannot find it at Walmart. So when I usually look for it, it's at Winn-Dixie. And I buy it when they have their sales, like 3 for whatever or 4 for whatever. I use the sweet peas and then the French-style green beans. Could you add other things? If there's other vegetables that you really like, go for it. I mean, this one is simple. It's just a matter, once you've opened your cans, drain them, dump them in. Your chopped vegetables, throw those in. And then once your mixture is cool, add that in. Voila, there's your salad. And again, that's all stuff that I have in the house. Like those, you keep cans of vegetables. I always have onions. I always have green peppers. Like I said, celery I don't always have, but if I don't, just don't put it in. So it just is kind of one of those things that's really easy to do. And like I said, pimentos, that's not a favorite. I put it in this one because it calls for it, just so you can see, but people can pick around. So the other one is a Mexican black bean and corn salad. And again, I like the colors. So here's the finished product. It does need, the last step is to add avocado, which I'll do right before I serve. But again, you can see this is also not too difficult. Lots of cans, lots of cutting, and there are several variations to this. This is like the 3rd different one I was looking for. I have made 2 in the past, but they have spice in them. So they have asked for like Tabasco sauce or the jalapeno peppers. I didn't want to make that for a big group because not everybody likes spice. So I looked for one that is very mild And then again, you can add spice to it and, you know, whatever you want to do. I personally like spice, but I know not everyone does. So this one, again, you can see it, it calls for the black beans and the corn, and again, draining them, and then they wanted you to rinse them off, so you just do that first. And then it's again chopping, again a therapeutic thing. So it has the red onion, it has Roma tomato, it has a red pepper. And then once you have that, your mixture to give it a little bit of sauce is olive oil, garlic, limes, and cilantro and salt and pepper. So it's not difficult at all. For those of you who have not, if you are not familiar with these, best thing at all to juice, because you just cut your lime or lemon in half, put it in, and then it just juices out. It is the greatest thing. It had to be Amazon. My husband's a big Amazon, so that's. But we use it. If you use it once, you've paid for it. It's paid for itself, because it just makes it so much easier than trying to, you know, squeeze it and squish them, and it just, you cut them in half and then squeeze it. Life is easy. So that's a really simple one. So again, it's just mixing it all up. The last thing I added was the cilantro after I mixed it in, and then like I said, the avocado, I will cut up and add, just dice that up and put it on top and then mix it in so it doesn't get brown. So again, nothing too difficult. And like I said, I have had several versions of this. You can eat Tabasco sauce, the jalapenos, to add more heat, but it's just a matter of what you are looking for, and so you could definitely add different variances to that as well. Yes, Martha?
Is there an herb you could substitute for the cilantro?
I have not. I think you probably could use parsley, I would think, but I have, because I know cilantro is a spice that either people really like it or they don't like it, and so if you don't like it, then you don't have to add it in. It just adds a little bit of the green color. So, and I would think, like, if you didn't want that, you could do, I've had it before with scallions in it. That would add the green. You could substitute the green pepper for the red pepper if you want, or like an orange pepper if you want something a little bit different for different color. So it's just a fun, colorful salad that, especially nice in this, spring and summer as you're, different things you're looking for. I made it for a group of people that we had over. We had ribs, and it's like, sometimes you're like, what can you do that's a little bit different? And so then it was a good place to try it before I tried it with all of you. So I have tried it with others first.
So I've lived in a couple of bigger cities, not huge cities, but bigger cities. So I was fortunate enough to have really good Indian restaurants around me where I lived. Don't get that as much here in Port Charlotte. I know there's one over on Tamiami, getting close to Toledo Blade. Does anybody know of any others?
There's some in Sarasota.
Sarasota? Yeah, it's a bit of a drive. Probably not going to go up there. Is there? Okay, I haven't checked it out.
Curry and kebab, right? Yeah, I remember.
Okay, I'll remember to check that out. Thanks for the heads up. So this is the first dish it's the second dish I've ever tried cooking that was actually Indian based. The other one was a dessert. But I decided to go ahead and do a vegetarian curry. I often associate Indian food with vegetarian. One of my favorite restaurants was a vegetarian Indian restaurant. So everything they served was vegetarian. And curries are pretty basic to Indian food, and I assumed it was going to be a lot more difficult than it turned out to be. So if you look at the recipe, you're going to see almost everything as the ingredients is fairly common stuff. So you got your vegetable oils, onion, garlic, carrots, potatoes, basically your vegetables that you want to throw in. If it was a real Indian dish, the jalapeno pepper might be separated out and replaced with a more regional pepper. But here it's a lot easier to get jalapeno peppers at the store, so that's what I went for in today's dish. The only maybe three exotic ingredients are going to be the ginger. So this is the first dish I've ever used ginger in, and I'll give you a word of warning. Ginger has a nice tang to it. It will also kind of burn your mouth just a tiny little bit. So I way overdid it the first time I did this recipe. I learned to cut back, but you will be able to taste it in this one. The other two are the curry powder. I thought most Indian dishes will use dried herbs and spices, and basically they'll bloom the dried spices as the first part of the cooking process, and then they'll add their powder a little bit later. A little harder to get any of those specialty herbs and spices here in town, so I just went with basic curry powder. Gave me all of the taste I really cared for. I probably lost some of the subtleties that I would have gotten with using the dried spices, but this was good enough to give me what I wanted. So, and it's pretty cheap. And the last thing that would have been a little unusual for some people, although most of you have probably tried it, coconut milk. So it takes the pressings from coconut, you get all of the sweetness from the coconut flesh, you get all of the juices, and more importantly, you get all of the fat from the coconut flesh. So you just add that in when you're cooking. So I'll go through it real quick. Basically, I just start prepping all of the vegetables. And unlike Suzanne, I do not like chopping vegetables, but I did it because that was the best thing to do. I could have substituted some frozen vegetables, but I figured everything I could get fresh, I would get fresh. So when I'm cooking for myself, I'll get it fresh when I can, and I'll get the frozen stuff and the canned stuff for convenience. I've tried this dish with canned peas, and they came out okay. A little bit more salt in it, but frozen peas I found out to be a little bit better. So basically, prepped all of the ingredients, chopped the onion, chopped up the vegetables, the peppers, also minced the garlic and the ginger. I found out, although it's not in the recipe, I actually prefer grating the ginger. It just makes it a little easier for me. It's a little hard to chop up and get it into the really small pieces that I want. So if I run it through a grater, a little hand grater, it goes a lot faster.
Do you peel it?
I do not. So you can, but since I'm grating it, it's going to get so small of pieces that when it gets mixed in, you're not actually going to get a chunk of skin or anything when you're eating it. So basically, you just go through the process. Like I said, if this were more of a traditional dish, they would bloom all of the spices in the oil before they start cooking up the vegetables. Then you throw your onions in, get those started, throw in your garlic and your ginger, get that started. And then I like to basically put together a little diagram of what I'm going to do when I cook. So on the TV shows, they always put everything into nice little serving dishes. It's a little bit of a hassle, but there are some convenient things to do. So for instance, when I prepped my vegetables, I made sure that on step number, where's it at? 7, carrots, potatoes, and the jalapenos. So when I prepped those, I put all of those into one large bowl so I can just dump that entire bowl into the pot when I was cooking it. So just do some little handy tips that will make it easier to organize the stuff. That way you're not looking around, what did I do with this particular ingredient? I prep it all ahead of time. I have it in a large bowl. I have the different steps laid out for me so that when I go to cook, I don't have to think nearly as much. And the cooking process is pretty simple. You're just going to put it on medium heat for a while, then get everything, start to cooking, add your different ingredients, and then you're going to add them in stages, let them cook for a little bit longer, and then finally at the end, you're going to add the ones that you want to slow cook and simmer. Those would be the peas, the peppers, and the coconut milk. And you basically just let it simmer for the directions call for 10 minutes. I was doing a little over a double batch, so I probably let this cook for about 20 minutes. That much volume required more cooking time than it would have if I just did a single batch. So 10 minutes is probably going to be good for a single batch if you're making it at home. If you prefer your vegetables a little tender, because I will say the potatoes came out really good. I like to chop my potatoes up into variable sizes. Not too big because I want everything to cook, but I also want to have a lot of little small pieces so that they will actually start to break down and thicken the sauce as it cooks. And then the carrots would probably be the only thing in here that's still a little firmer than some people would like.
Okay, so vegetarian, we've had a lot of requests for vegetarian and alternates, like Suzanne was talking about swapping out the sugar for the sugar substitute for her husband. So that's all great things. That's kind of why we're doing this. So I thought, vegetarian. Now those of you that have been with us a while, I had to really think on this one. I was like, what are we going to do for vegetarian? So, but I came up with it, so it worked out. So what I decided to do is, well, actually, let me back up a minute. One of the things that we like to do a couple times a month is let Sam's cook. So if any of you are Sam's members, they have like the take and bake. They got like an enchilada dish. They've got the manicotti. They got stuffed peppers, things like that. So we like to just grab one of those, throw it in the oven, and it's an easy meal when you're got a busy life going on. So one of the things that they have is the manicotti. We like manicotti. It's a cheese manicotti, but the sauce you could probably swim in it. It's real thin. So I was like, okay. So I thought maybe I can do that for what's cooking. Now, I've talked to some people who are from Italy. They make their manicotti wraps, I guess you call them, out there specifically a shell or not. And they're like, 20 minutes later, they're telling me, okay, now you're done with the noodles. Now you're going to make the, I'm like, I'm taking a page out of Suzanne's book, right? We need simple. So I thought, all right, how can we speed this up and still have a nice weeknight meal, especially if any of you have a busy life and you just want something that you can literally take out of the fridge and throw it in the oven. So that's what we've got today. And my recipe is on page 4. It's called the Make Ahead Spinach Manicotti. See, we even got green stuff in there, so that means it's healthy, right? It's awesome. Okay, so this is pretty simple. You only need a bowl, and one of these helps. So you're going to take your ricotta cheese, the frozen spinach. Well, it's going to be chopped. You're going to thaw it first. I found out spinach takes like 2 days in the fridge to really get, So this is a great project to do if you had a rough day. Put your spinach in a paper towel, go over to the sink and just squeeze it till you can't squeeze anymore. So that's what I did. Mozzarella cheese, now it's going to have about a cup in the actual shells, and then you're going to put some on top. And same thing with the Parmesan cheese. It's all listed out in the instructions. The egg, I assume they're using as a binder. That's something I had to throw in there to kind of hold it together. Then you got your onion powder, pepper, garlic powder. Again, I'm using the granulated because I think it gives you more flavor. If you can find the granulated, at Sam's they have granulated garlic and onion powder. I use it in Chex Mix. It really boosts the flavor. And then you got your spaghetti sauce. So I've tried this with 1 jar, and it just made it, but it was kind of thick. So what we have today is the Walmart brand spaghetti sauce. Nothing's fancy, it's pretty thin, so I used 1.5 jars. If you really like sauce, put 2 jars in. It'll be a little bit more thinner. It just kind of depends on what you like. And an 8-ounce box of the manicotti shells. Let me tell you about manicotti shells, okay? So I go to the grocery store that starts with a P. A lot of us know, okay? I'm looking at all the shells. Looking in the pasta section for manicotti. This is the only thing that they had. And this is, oh, it's imported from Italy. I thought, boy, this is going to be really authentic, right? Perfect. So I got a box of this. I got ready to make my test batch. I opened up the box. They were just thrown in here. Some of them were busted. Now, the other thing with manicotti, last time I checked, the shells are like this. Oh no, these shells were like this. How in the heck do you fill this? So my recommendation for these are, okay, go to Walmart and get you this, okay? I thought, oh, well, are these going to be any better? What Walmart does is they have these nice little trays. There's 7 in a tray. None of them were busted. We went through 1.5 boxes to make 2 of these. And they're 9 by 13 pans, nothing crazy. So, and the shells were actually round. So I said, oh, this is going to go a whole lot better than last time, okay? So I mixed up the ricotta, the spinach, some of the mozzarella, some of the Parmesan, the egg, onion powder, pepper, garlic powder in a bowl. Now, back in the day when I used to do the bakery thing, we used to use pastry bags all the time, okay? I suffer from FFS, right? Fat finger syndrome. That's not gonna work. So I took a gallon-sized bag. If you've never done this before, it's all the rage, you should try it. You just go like that, put your stuff in there, snip. Be sure to put this back or else you're gonna have a mess, okay? Squeeze all the air out of it. Ready to go. It literally took me to fill, we did 20 shells is what, so 10 in each pan is what fit. So we did a total of 20. It took me only a couple minutes because it went, since they're round and you have to try to force it through a teardrop shape. Boom, 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 next one. Boom, 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 next one. So what I did is I laid them all out on a pan because I wasn't sure how many was gonna fit because this is a different brand than that other one, right? So I laid them all out on a sheet pan. I took, since we're doing 2 pans, we'll say I took half a jar of sauce, put it down on the, first I greased the 9x13, okay? And then put some sauce down, then laid them, and what ended up working is a 9x13 is going this way instead of this way. I got more in, okay? So put them in there, put the rest of the sauce on, just took a spatula, just gave it a little once over. Now, everybody's gonna tell you out there that you should put about top it with a half a cup of cheese. I put a half a cup of cheese on there. I was like thinking 1980s, where's the beef? No, it's where's, right? No, so I said, no, that's not gonna work. So I took 2 cups, 16 ounces, and that's what I topped it with, okay? So that's what we got. So all you need to do now, by the way, these are not cooked when you put it together. That's what makes this rather easy to fill because these have not been cooked and now you're trying to deal with like a worm that doesn't want to cooperate and that whole thing, right? So since these are rigid, you can easily fill them, not a problem. So they go in there uncooked. That's where the make ahead part comes in. It's overnight. So overnight, the filling of the ricotta and it's going to pull some of the moisture out of the tomato sauce and it's going to start to soften them up. So this has been in here for about 18 hours. So now your company comes or you're ready to eat dinner, half hour before you're ready to eat, when you fire up the hot box, let this sit on the counter out of the fridge for about 30 minutes. This is Pyrex, but still it's a good idea just to kind of take the chill off. I do not bake it with foil because I want some of that evaporation because I don't want it swimming in sauce. If you're in the other camp, no problem. A little bit way through, put some foil on or put foil on for the entire time or maybe then take it off the last 10 minutes if you want to get a little bit of browning on your cheese, whatever you want to do. Other than that, that's it. 40 minutes in the oven's about what works. That's why I was checking, well, Suzanne and Willard were up here. I know this oven cooks a little bit hotter than my one at home, but right around 40 minutes, it's done. I even tempt it, even though there's no meat in it. I'm a big, I love my thermometer, so I check it for at least 160. I know it's hot all the way through. So this is another great tool to have in your kitchen if you don't have one. It doesn't have to be a fancy one, just something that'll tell you how hot it is inside.
In thinking about today's class, I thought, well, what's my favorite herb? Well, I happen to like mint. So what I've made for you here is a mint julep syrup. If you like if you're actually a mint julep drink person, you could add bourbon to this, but I like it just with 7-Up with 0 sugar. I've also made this with sugar substitute, so there's no sugar in here. So for anybody who's a little health conscious, I try to make it, as healthy as I can, but I actually grow some mint back on my lanai. So if you've ever looked at mint in the store, there are different mint plants. You can get spearmint, you can get peppermint. This is usually labeled what they call sweet mint. So I'm going to take it out of the bag. When you come by here, if you want to just rub your fingers on it and you can smell the mint, you'll get the right flavor of mint to make the syrup. I like planting it in a pot because if you put it in your yard, it is very invasive. It's going to spread everywhere. So anyway, try this when you come by. I hope you enjoy the drink, and it's very cool and refreshing on a hot summer day. And you can mix it with ginger ale, or like I said, I just like the 7-Up with 0 sugar. I hope you enjoy.